meeting number 195 of the 4th of June 2025, scheduled to take place from 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock virtually via Microsoft Teams. Also like to take this time to also welcome the members of the public that are following us through the various live streaming platforms. With me here are members of the Petroleum Pipeline Subcommittee. I'll just go through the introductions. Firstly, introduce myself as the person who's going to be chairing this meeting. My name is Muzu Vugile Mkize, who is the chairperson of the Petroleum Pipeline Subcommittee. With me is the deputy chairperson of NERSA, who is also the chair of the Human Resources and Remuneration Committee and a member of various committees within NERSA, Madam Zandile Pungose. Madam Pungose.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members, and greetings to members of the public who are live streaming this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Pungose. I also have got Advocate Tole, who is the CEO of NERSA, chairing the Recruiter Executive Committee, a member of various committees within NERSA, and also a member of this committee, the Petroleum Pipeline Subcommittee. Over to you, Advocate Tole.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning to you and to the members and to everyone who has joined us for this PPS meeting this morning. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I also have got Madam Nomfundo Maseti, who is the full-time regulator member primarily responsible for pipe gas regulation, also assisting currently as a member primarily responsible for electricity regulation, chairing both the pipe gas subcommittee as well as the electricity subcommittee, and a member of various committees within NERSA. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning to you, and good morning to the members, as well as the members of the public that are following this meeting in order to observe the proceedings of today's meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Maseti. I will then proceed to the last member on call, Mr. Fungai Sibanda, who is the chairperson of the ITGC, which is the Information Technology Governance Committee, as well as a member of various committees within NERSA. He is the part-time regulator member of NERSA, as well as a member of this Petroleum Pipeline Subcommittee. Over to you, Mr. Sibanda.
Morning, Chair, NERSA colleagues and members of the public. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sibanda. Without much ado, we'll then proceed with our meeting. We'll first of all just to make sure that we adopt the agenda with the change that was proposed to swap agenda item 9 and 10 around, which one dealing with the allocation mechanism for uncommitted storage capacity for South Africa bulk commodity trading and storage services storage facility in Germiston, to swap it, make it number 10 and take number 10 to be number 9, which is the RFD on the tariff application by Sasol Oil Pty Ltd and BP Southern Africa for their jointly owned petroleum storage facility in R Road, Gauteng Province, for the period 1 July 2025 to 30 June 2026. We'll sub that around. If you are agreeable to that, members, and you support the adoption of the agenda with that change, please indicate by raising your hands. Thank you, Madam Maseti. Thank you, Mr. Sibanda. Thank you, Advocate Tole. Thank you, Madam Pungose. I also support. So the agenda is now adopted with that change. I will then move on to item number 4, which is a declaration of interest. By show of hands, members, if you've got any conflict of interest to declare right here now. I don't see any hands. I would like to take this opportunity to implore all of you members to please fill in the declaration of interest forms and share them with the Secretariat, Madam Maswanganye. The same would then also apply to management and stuff. With that, we'll then proceed and go straight to the regulatory issues to deal with today, starting off with item number 5, which is the BP Southern Africa Pty Ltd and Shell South Africa Energy Pty Ltd's application for the second amendment of conditions of their combined license issued for the operation of the Petroleum facilities in Island View, KwaZulu-Natal province. I would hand over to you, Madam Twa, the Executive Manager for Petroleum Pipelines Regulation. You lead your team in this regard. Please, for all the items, we take the items as read and we give a maximum of 3 minutes for introduction and presentation to the.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good morning. Good morning, members and colleagues and the members of the public. As you have read the subject of the application, may I allow Ms. Mahamata to give an introduction of the submission, and as indicated, consider it as being read and just highlight the salient features. Thank you. Ms. Mahamata.
Thank you, EM. Good morning, Chair and members of the committee, as well as colleagues in the meeting. Chair, as introduced, the submission relates to the application by BP and Shell, which jointly operate as SUPREF, and this is for the second amendment to the conditions of the combined license for their group of facilities in Island View, Durban. Chair, just a bit of background quickly. The initial combined license was issued for a group of storage sites and several pipelines interconnecting these storage sites, including transfer pipelines between the previous ex-SUPREF refinery and the NATCOS facilities in Prospecton. The license was subsequently amended in 2022 to remedy some of the challenges associated with the then combined license. And this license in particular was one of those that had to be restructured in terms of the removal of some of the activities and removal of terms that were not recognized in the Act. In the previous amendment, there was also a reflection of the replacement tanks, which were constructed by Transnet for SUPREF and treated as an asset swap in line with the regulatory reporting manuals. But details of this asset swap are outlined in the tariff application, which is the next agenda item for today. For the current amendment, Chair, SUPREF is requesting the correction of certain information, such as the number of tanks, tank details, including capacities and product changes in some cases. In addition to that, SUPREF further seeks to remove from the license conditions assets that are listed there but are redundant or no longer in use. The details of the proposed changes within the document are highlighted in blue for the various sites. The two key issues that we considered in our analysis were firstly, the rationale for the amendment sought. And in the main, Chair, the amendment is really to ensure that the correct facility details are reflected and that the operation license only contains assets that are in operation or anticipated to be used in the foreseeable future. Key to this as well, Chair, is the fact that this group of facilities, due to the way that they were licensed and the mismatch of information, have historically not had an approved tariff. However, with this proposed amendment, the tariff application could be seamlessly processed. And as I stated, it's also for consideration today as item 6. So if one looks at all the proposed changes, the resultant change really in capacity is less than 1% and is not as a result of new tanks, but rather correction of the tank details. The second key issue we considered was the question on whether the retirement of some of the assets will result in any environmental liability or requirement for land rehabilitation. And in response to this, Chair, the licensee indicated that There are no plans at this stage to decommission or physically remove the infrastructure that is not in use, but also acknowledge that it will be held liable for any costs associated with any damage to the soil and the groundwater, and provisions will be raised for that aspect. Finally, Chair, in concluding, in rereading the submission before the members, we did note some areas of enhancements, mainly in the facility tables, where we'll need to define some of the products and abbreviations that we use there. And we do plan to effect these as part of the ER submission. With that said, Chair, the recommendation is for the PPS to consider and recommend to the energy regulator to approve the second amendment for the operation of petroleum facilities by BP and Shell. The proposed RFD, which is attached as Annexure A, and the addendum to the license conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. If I may just read the recommendation, members, it is recommended that the PPS considers and recommends to the energy regulator to approve the second amendment of the combined license issued to BP Southern Africa, Pty Ltd, and Shell South Africa Energy Pty Ltd for the operation of petroleum facilities in Island View. The decision and reasons for decision document attached here to as Annexure A, and the addendum number 2 to the license conditions attached as Annexure 1 of the decision and reasons for decision document. Having said that, members, by show of hands, if you have any comments, questions, or guidance to provide to the team. I note Advocate Stolle and then Mr. Sibanda in that order, please. And then Madam Maseti, that one. Over to you, Advocate Stolle.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thanks to the presenter. Chair, I just have one question of clarity on page 4, the green stamped page 4. If we look at it, it says that the storage tanks are 47 for the 5 sites. But when you look at 4.4, the numbers that are indicated there under A to E do not seem to get to that 47 number. So I just thought that maybe the team can just give some clarity as to what happened to the other tanks, unless if really I've counted incorrectly the numbers, but I did them twice. I still get to a lesser number than what is indicated under F at the top. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Advocate Stolle. Over to Mr. Sibanda.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, just a couple of questions of clarity. The first one, just to confirm that all the pipelines are considered auxiliary, which is why we no longer talk of a combined license to operate the storage as well as the pipeline facilities. If colleagues can just confirm that, because I thought I saw a couple of other pipelines. I'm not too sure whether all of them are actually auxiliary. The second question is around decommissioning. As I understand it, Subpref seeks to remove redundant assets that are no longer in use. But at the same time, they are saying there's not decommissioning of assets. So I don't, it's not clear to me how what's going to be the use of these assets that are regarded as redundant and no longer in use, yet are not being decommissioned. It doesn't add up for me. Maybe if I can be clarified, but also the fact that it appears there's no decommissioning provision that has been provided by the licensee. And I'm just wondering how, if decommissioning does take place, how is that going to be carried out if there is no provision for decommissioning? Yeah, maybe if I can be clarified on those aspects, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sibanda. Madam Maseti.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm partly covered by Mr. Sibanda, but I think the question also for me is then about us, NERSA, as regarding the compliance with the regulation that it requires us to ensure rehabilitation of land. How do we deal with that aspect of ensuring that the removal of these tanks, there will be compliance with the rehabilitation of land, as we are required to oversee that in terms of the regulations? What are we going to do? Because now these tanks are redundant, they are going to be removed. What are we going to do from our side in compliance with the requirements of the regulations? I think that part must be dealt with in the submission. Yes, and also maybe clarification as to whether during the utilization of these tanks there was a decommissioning allowance included in the tariffs, so that then the money that was put aside, then it will have to be utilized then to ensure that there is rehabilitation of land as required by our own regulatory framework. The second thing that I wanted to touch on, the Chairperson, is maybe the way that we stated the rationale for this amendment, because for me it is confusing. There are three things that are stated here, and they need to be reconciled appropriately. One is that there's a redundancy that is being spoken to. There is an issue of accurate details that needs to be reflected in the license. And I think the other issue is, just want to check, Chairperson, I've marked it. The correction, is it the correction? The issue of correction that is mentioned, just want to check, or to rectify some capacities of the storage. I don't know what that means. Whether there are storage capacities, the storage capacities that were not accurately recorded during the license that was granted by NERSA, or what exactly do we mean by this? And also the redundancy here, does it mean that these assets are not usable at all, or are not economically, well, not maybe I must change to say, is it uneconomical to continue the usage of these assets? I just want to check that if these assets cannot perform at all, or it is the question of them being uneconomical to utilize them or to operate them for the purpose that they were intended for. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Maseti. I hope that, Tim, you'll just be able to explain things clearer. For example, you know that this is part of the cleanup process of those operation licenses, because there were no construction licenses as such, because these, when the Act came into operation, they were already being operated, and they had the automatic operation license granted to them. And as such, in that whole process, some of the information is different from what it is now, or what really transpired thereafter. And there was that process that the team embarked upon to make sure that there's proper auditing and verification of these, as well as being able to separate licenses such that you don't have a situation where it becomes an impossibility to then have a tariff for a facility with combined storage and pipelines all over the show. So as a result, then there was a process of ensuring that these are separated. Moreover, we've had a situation where SEF has bought the Supref refinery, with the result that the pipes that are interconnecting from the refinery to these tanks are also part of that deal, which tariff application is still going to come to this committee. The other application for the tariff is included here and now for these storage tanks then. I think that is very important to clarify that. And also that not all these those pipes that are not auxiliary as such, but can be seen as standalone, are those pipes that are linking the refinery to these tanks. I think you also need to then be able to talk to the issue of rehabilitation of land much more clearer, in the sense that land rehabilitation is what the petroleum pipeline sector has put forth as a responsible as part of that responsible regulation, because it is something administered by the Environmental Affairs or Department of Fisheries, Forestry and Environment. But then from our side, we need to ensure that there's a financial provision, noting the kind of challenges that came about from the mass acid mine water drainage challenges. And therefore, just to ensure that when they've ceased operation, the rehabilitation of land does actually take place. So the non-collection of fees, setting aside those fees explicitly indicated, does not absolve them from that responsibility. And it is an area that we're still in the early stages, and therefore struggling with it. But I think that there's work that has already been done, including giving proper guidance, providing guidelines in terms of the setting aside of funds for rehabilitation of land. We need to be able to indicate all of that, as well as the tank age. Were those tanks that are redundant, whether they're useful or usable or used, vis-a-vis the tanks that are no longer in a working condition, or those that are just not being used currently. Because also to highlight that those that are not being used, they are also not going to be part of the tariff calculations. So please, even when you respond, just look at that. But it's over to you and your team, Madam EM, to look at the 43 tanks vis-a-vis what is indicated, the 47 tanks vis-a-vis what is indicated there. Over to you, ma'am.
Thanks, Chairperson. The team has indicated to address the different question as you've indicated, but I think just to talk on the 47 tanks as by the CEO, the initial counting was from the original license. As you can, it's indicated that after the first amendment, then some of the tanks then were removed from the license. But Ms. Mahamati will touch on that. And then Mr. Untit will talk more on the redundant assets, and the tariff team will then come in on the rehabilitation. In that order, colleagues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, EM, and thank you for the questions. And I think for the most part, the chair has addressed some of the questions that were asked. But on the aspect of the number of tank, the clarity there, I think the EM has touched on it. In paragraph 4.2, details the initial license that was issued by NESA, and the details therein included 47 tanks. But post the First Amendment and in the Second Amendment as well, those tanks have changed. I think in the First Amendment, there was a removal of slop tanks and some water tanks as well, which were included therein. So effectively, paragraph 4.2 addresses the license as issued initially, and paragraph 4.4 addresses the license as is currently prior to this amendment, which would be Amendment 1 in 4.4. And then, yeah. So I hope that clarifies the issue on the tank numbers, but we will, again, as we do the year submission, confirm the numbers as well. In terms of the confirmation of the pipelines being auxiliary, Mr. Sibanda, yes, you are correct. Now all the pipelines in this license post this amendment, if approved, will be considered as auxiliary pipelines. The only licensable pipeline that was in this license was the crude pipeline between the Subcommittee refinery and NATCOS. And as the chair has already indicated, some of those assets would have been part of the transaction with Sunpack and Subcommittee. Yeah, and then I think on the element of the tanks that are no longer in use or redundancy, I think Mr. Untit will expand on it. But the only tank there that is being removed and has reached its asset life or retirement is one tank. On the pipelines mainly, they are no longer in use, but they are still they'll still be there. So they haven't reached their end of life as yet, but only the tank that's listed in table 1 has reached its asset retirement stage. Thank you.
Morning, Chair, members and members of the public. I think just to add on to, I think the first question is dealt with, the auxiliary, it was explained. Maybe then in terms of the redundancy, yes, the one tank end of life, but in terms of the NEMA regulations, there is certain requirements in terms of the environmental management plan to just maintain them in that sense that there's no risk to that. And then there will be a decision to actually go ahead, and then it's either abandoned or there's different processes to be followed. But in this case, the pipeline is being removed, that's licensable. But it doesn't mean they will physically go dig up the pipeline. There is processes, and this is similar to what Transnet has done, where they cease operations, it's not operational, and then it's just maintained in terms of the management plan, but there is no physical decommissioning to then decide to remove it or just wash it out and fill it with slurry. So I hope we answered the members that it's definitely no longer operational, and they are removing it from the licensed activity rather than to physically go remove the lines at this point. So there is a process to follow, which also complicates this a bit, is the fact that it starts within certain areas like the port limits, which falls under the Transnet National Ports Authority. And in terms of the lease agreement, that is the responsibility, the rehabilitation of Transnet. Whilst the matters outside the port limits is then the actual licensee's responsibility. So that they are working together on that. But I think the chair has indicated the rehabilitation part, and I think Ms. Boku will come in now. So I want to check if I've missed anything, and whether economical or not, uneconomical. So I think they did not make any pronouncement on being uneconomical. Ms. Masetti, what they did say is they cited the transaction with the Central Energy Fund. So, and Mr. Mkhize, the chair, has indicated that the line's been removed. So I think it's linked to the transaction for the refinery rather than being uneconomical. Yeah, and then Mr. Mkhize did indicate the cleanup process. These applications, what we meant was that they applied in terms of the transitional arrangements in the Act. At that time, only had to prove they're the owner and they're willing and able to operate. Then subsequently, we started doing the audits and the enforcement. Then some of these discrepancies came about, like licensing of slops, which was done initially in all those transitional arrangements, laws, which is alcohols and solvents, which was included, has then subsequently been removed. There was a PPS resolution on categorization of the pipelines, and as a result, the First Amendment happened, and this is now just a further update on that, following up the transaction. I'm not sure, Ms. Boku, in terms of the rehabilitation part, in addition to what the chair said.
Thank you, Mr. Untit, and good morning, Chairperson, members and colleagues. Chairperson, Subpref, I always confuse Petro SA and Subpref in my head. Subpref is not yet compliant in terms of the regulations, which require that it has an approved financial instrument to accumulate funds for land rehabilitation and decommissioning of facilities. And we have been enforcing compliance and engaging the licensee on that front. And in terms of those compliance enforcement, the licensee is committed to submit an instrument for approval by the regulator by the end of July 2025. So we're expecting submission by end of July 2025. And also to clarify that there have been no tariffs approved for Subpref or any of its facilities. So nothing has been recouped through tariffs. And also because there is no approved instrument, there wouldn't be any recoupment through tariffs before approval of a financial instrument. And in terms of what they would then use if there are no funds recouped through tariffs, the financial provisioning for land rehabilitation and decommissioning is a legal requirement in terms of NEMA. So we believe that the entity is raising a provision in its balance sheet to cover for any requirements to rehabilitate land or decommission the facilities we regulate. I hope, Chairperson, that it covers the questions asked. Thanks.
Thank you. Just make sure that you are categorical in terms of the tanks that are in use and those that are not, and those that are included and excluded from the license, and as well as also from the tariff, because then they will not be part of the regulatory asset base. And then on the rehabilitation, also stressing that we can't allow them to then include a claim for funds to set aside for rehabilitation when they don't have a fit for purpose instrument for those funds. I think that is important to also note in terms of the enhancement of the submission. Members, I know we've taken much longer on this one. Any follow-ups? Are you happy with the responses, which will form part of the enhancements to the submission? I don't see any follow-up. I'm seeing thumbs up. They are happy with that. Members, by show of hands, if you then approve the recommendation as read out earlier by myself. Thank you, Madam Maseti. Thank you, Madam Pungose. Thank you, Madam Advocate Stole. And thank you, Mr. Sbanda. This then disposes of item 5. And then we move to item 6, which emanates from item 5. It is a submission on the decision and reasons for decision of the tariff application by BP Southern Africa Pty Ltd and Shell South Africa Energy Pty Ltd for their petroleum storage facilities in Island View, Durban, KwaZulu-Natal province. Over to you, Madam Itwa and your team. You've got your 3 minutes.
Yes, no, thank you, Chairperson. Mr. Mahlangu will assist in terms of introduction, and we note all the enhancement which will also be considered for this submission, also going to the ER if the members do recommend as such. Mr. Mahlangu.
Thank you, EM. Greetings, Chair, members, colleagues, and members of the public which are live streaming. The purpose of this submission is to request the PPS members to recommend for approval by ER the tariffs applied for by BPSA and Shell Energy for its Durban storage facility, and recommend for approval by ER the decision and reasons for decision document attached to as Annexure A. On 2 December 2024, the applicant submitted the tariff application for its Durban storage facility. The tariff application is for the period 1 January 2025 to 31 December 2027. The tariff application was deemed adequate for processing on 29 January 2025, following submission of complete information by the applicants. The key issues considered pertaining to the asset tank swaps are highlighted on pages 7 to 8 of the PPS cover submission. The analysis of the tariff application is provided on pages 9 to 13 of the PPS cover submission. The difference or differences in the allowable revenue and tariffs is mainly due to the difference in the regulatory asset base values calculated by the applicants and NESA, mainly due to the different CPI values used, and also the different trending period applied by the applicants and NESA. And another difference is also due to the weighted average cost of capital, due to the application of the different economic data used by the applicants and NESA. Chair, I would like to make a correction for members to note that the correct citation of the section in terms of the PPR delegation matrix is in terms of section 1.8 rather than section 1.7 for authority by ER to approve tariffs with an AR of above 1 billion. In conclusion, I would like to recommend that the PPS recommends for approval by the ER the tariffs of 23.34 cents per litre, 23.58 cents per litre, and 22.94 cents per litre for the 2025, 26, and 27 financial years, respectively, and recommend for approval by the ER the decision and reasons for decision document attached hereto as Annexure A. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mahlang. We have read the recommendation, which is under paragraph 12, covering 12.1.1 and 12.1.2. Members, any questions, comments, or guidance to provide to the team? I don't see any hands. I think your presentation was very clear, Mr. Mahlang. I'll then proceed, members, by show of hands, if you support the recommendation as read out by Mr. Mahlang. By show of hands. Thank you, Mr. Sbanda, Madam Maseti, Advocate Stole, Madam Pungose. I also support. This then concludes this item 6 and allows us to proceed then to item 7, which entails a decision and reasons for decision document on the tariff application by Sasol Oil Pty Ltd for the Secunda to Natref integrated pipeline, so-called SNI pipeline, for the period 1 July 2025 to 30 June 2026. Over to you, Madam Twai, your team. We've got 3 minutes.
Yes, no, thank you, Chair. Ms. Mahopela will assist in the introduction of this matter and highlight all the silent features and where we need to make minor corrections. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to members and colleagues. The purpose of this submission is to request the PPS to set a tariff of 42.04 cents per litre for Sasol Oil Secunda to Natref pipeline, and to also approve the decision and reasons for decision document attached as Annexure A. In terms of Section 28(1) of the Act, the authority must set a condition of a license, the tariff to be charged by a licensee in the operation of the petroleum pipeline. In this tariff application, Sasol Oil applied for a tariff of 43.62 cents per litre for the period 1st July 2025 to 30 June 2026, which translates into an increase of 36% from the 32.06 cents per litre set for the period 2024-25. The increase is mainly attributable to Sasol Oil forecasting lower volumes in the 2025-26 financial year as compared to the volumes forecasted in the 2024-25 financial year. The projected decrease in volumes is due to Sasol Oil not anticipating demand for diesel, jet fuel, and high-octane component volumes that are transported via the SNI pipeline to Natref, and the low demand for ULP 95 and ULP 93 volumes when compared to the previous years. To ensure that the 2025-26 financial year projected volumes are reasonable, Sasol Oil was requested to provide the latest actual as at 31st May 2025 for the approved volumes of 2024-25 financial year. And based on the submission that we received by the 31st of May, the volumes are still show a decline as compared to what was approved by NERSA in the 2024-25 financial year. The difference in the tariff applied for by Sasol Oil and that determined by NERSA is mainly due to the different REP values, work calculation, and OPEX cost. It is therefore recommended that the PPS set the tariff of 42.04 cents per litre for Sasol SNI and approve the decision and reasons for decision as attached. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mahopela. I was hoping that you were also going to highlight the fact that there were questions around the regulation of this pipeline, seeing that it is a pipeline that is interconnecting two facilities under one company, the Sasolburg one facility and the Secunda one, also not necessarily transporting finished product, but also components for fuel, between these facilities. And as the law currently is carved, it allows and requires the regulation of this pipeline. Previously, when that question arose, there was an investigation around that, and it came out that we still need to regulate the pipeline as well as the tariff. Currently, they don't have a third party using that line, but with that remote possibility that we still continue to regulate. Hence, the swings sometimes with regard to the products or the components being transported using this pipeline, as you would see with how they vary depending on how the NATREF side is and the Secunda side is in terms of operation. Members, I don't want then to delay any further, but just to say to you, if you've got any comments, questions, or guidance to provide to the team, may you please raise your hands. I've got Madam Masetti. That's the only hand I have. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, just on the issue of the volumes, because the increase is not insignificant if one looks at how much was approved last year. And this is now within a period of 12 months or so, even though we have not achieved that 12 months yet until it is end of June. So my question is whether the lower volumes are only affected by the projected decline in the demand. I just want to check if the projected decline in the demand is the only factor that affects the lower volumes that are projected. That's the first thing. The second one is whether there is we need to, from our verification, to get two things. One is to actually see or get the document that the applicant or the licensee relied on in terms of making an analysis of the demand, which influences the volume projections. So do we have that document where the licensee has assessed the market and the demand, or even, the utilization of that connecting pipeline to check what is it that is going to affect the demand? Why is the decline in the demand? We are not getting that benefit as to what is the reason for the decline in demand. Why are they now relying on the projected decline in demand without any substantiation? Because we have not had the substantiation as to what is it that gives rise to them believing that the demand is going to decline. So can we be informed on that? Because it is not right that we can take things at face value simply because the licensee says that we foresee a decline in demand. But what document that the licensee relies on in terms of sort of the sales and the volumes from those that are going to take the volumes, especially between the two facilities? We need to get that document so that at least from our side we can satisfy ourselves and verify that. The second thing that I wanted to ascertain, if they have done that verification, they would have also be in a position to assess whether this thing of a demand is not really an issue here. Maybe the issue is the ability, is the production ability, or the productive capacity of the applicant as opposed to the demand. Now we are not getting the benefit of understanding whether the issue here is actually not on the demand side. The issue could well be that the licensee has issues with the productive capacity. It does not have the ability to produce the amount. So those are the issues for me, Chairperson. The other issue that will also be helpful here when the thorough analysis is done is to look at the previous year actual volumes that were achieved, so that there's a table of what was achieved previously and what is now anticipated. That will assist to the extent that it will deal with the volume risk issues where they will overstate the volumes, yet what they've achieved is lower than what they have projected. That could still be something that we will take on board, so that we say, oh, okay, if they are focusing lower volumes, is still fine, because previously we could see that they have achieved lower than they have projected. At least that picture, it would have been a very good economic analysis that will give us comfort when we are now presented with this kind of information. Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure if the team can assist us with that, because it is not presented as such in the submission to assist us to have that economic reasoning and the analysis that should go into the assessment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Massetti. If you may just please respond, team, looking at the enhancement of paragraph 6.12, which deals with volumes, because there's, for example, if you look at the issue that there's a steady state operation that is being assumed in some of these things. And obviously, the main questions that Madam Massetti has asked, I think they are very much interrelated in terms of the volumes being considered from a point of view of the projected demand in the market, as opposed to the demand that will arise from the plants themselves, one plant to another, as well as the production rate of the respective plants, which will then inform a situation where one plant would not be able to produce enough molecules to transport to the other plant, and vice versa. So it's to be able just to look at that and enhance. If you may just please weigh in, Madam Twa and your team.
Thank you, Chairperson. If I may please start. Chairperson, what I think is important for us to explain to members is what you touched on earlier, that this pipeline is normally used to transport components, not finished products, between the Secunda coal to liquids refinery and NATREF. However, under emergency cases, the pipeline is then used by SASO and NATREF to transport finished products. So what happened previously, which led to a reduction in tariffs, was an anomaly. If members maybe look at our table 3 under volumes there was a huge increase of 46% in the volumes, because there was an emergency that required that also finished products be transported using this pipeline. And that has been decreasing, going back to normal levels, because after that huge emergency that happened in 2022-23, that then there was never a requirement for using the pipeline to transport finished products. So now it is like the decline in the volumes is not necessarily driven by there being lower demand for finished products in the country, but then by there being lower demand for transporting finished products using this pipeline. So I hope, Chairperson, that my response covers Member Massetti on this one. I don't know if Martin can also assist me with technical operation of the pipeline And if Ms. Mahupela would also have an addition. Thanks.
Thank you.
To be brief, just adding more directly responding to Ms. Maseti's question. Indeed, production issues has been widely reported in the media and the last two SENS statements when they announced their results. The coal quality has really hurt them. The other factor to just put on the table is that the fire incident at Natref, because products are transferred components for blending at Natref to then go out, that also pushed down the demand. So, but that is a factor that happened in this financial year, and it doesn't. I'm not implying it's forward looking, but yeah, I think the last comment then, indeed, the components for jet fuels, because IATA don't allow synthetic jet, it is also blending happening. And so all these things affected the output. So I think just, yes, Ms. Maseti, it may be definitely a production issue too.
Okay, then, if that's the case, I think it's important then to enhance the sections that deal with volume to be able to incorporate the matters that pertain to volume. And going forward, you need to be very clear as to the documents that inform these projections. For example, the shutdown schedule or planned shutdown schedule for the two facilities, which will then also inform the products or the molecules being transported between the two facilities. I think that will actually help in terms of how you then verify what is being put forth, other than just citing market demand. Madam Maseti, are you covered?
Yes, Chairperson, I'm covered also by both Martin and, but the submission does not analyze these two components together because they are quite important for our verification. And the other thing, Chairperson, that we need to be careful about in paragraph 6.14 and downwards, Chair. You see the facts that have, the issues that I've just raised. The issue of the productive capacity or the ability to produce the amounts that may be required. And then the second thing is then the issue of the volumes. Now, the reasons that they are talking about now are not the reasons that are enumerated in paragraph 6.14. We must be very careful. Now, what they are doing there, they simply take an economic outlook, which is very broad macroeconomic issues, as if those broad economic issues have direct impact on the volumes of that needs to be transported through this pipeline. But I am not seeing that direct link, how it arises, which is an issue, because they say they look at whether there's a positive economic outlook, and all of that, and therefore it affects the volumes. Then they go on paragraph 6.15, Chair, to now say there was an independent assessment, and then they consider the GDP growth and whether that the GDP growth affects the fuel sales and therefore the volumes. I just don't understand. And that they're not showing, it's just the issue of the correlation that they're trying to come up with. But because here, you don't have so many customers. Why is it that it's so difficult to have asked them to find out what are your sales? What is your requirements for this year? How much are you going to require? Even if it's a finished product, even if it's just the unfinished products that are going to be transported through this pipeline for connection, they ought to have asked how much will be your demand and all of those things, then that's the one that is going to be considered in terms of the volumes. So that assessment here, it needs to be enhanced and tied up nicely with regards to the issue of the demand, the decline in the demand, as well as then the volumes. But then we can't rely just on those macroeconomic issues such as the GDP and without showing the direct link. And at the same time, we're talking about the microeconomic aspect, which is then the performance of these individual companies or these companies in terms of producing and performing. So I don't know how we're tying up those macro as well as microeconomic aspects. Thank you.
Thank you. I think the team you need to do is to enhance that section, that whole section, to talk to the derived demand for these components. For example, we've got the cat polydiesel, which comes from the catalytic polymerization units in Secunda, and then have the jet fuel and other these high octane components that are transported, because it's necessarily for blending to increase the octane of the products that are in NATREF, and that it is derived from the national demand, but the demand on its own and of itself for these components is informed by the production levels at NATREF as well as in Secunda as well, which then also talks to the shutdown schedules and other problems that one would encounter when operating a plant or a facility of this nature. So if you could just augment that from that point of view. And I would also add that as a team, you need to then closely follow these volume levels throughout the financial year, periodically, so that you in the next application you are even more succinct in terms of what needs to be done. Madam Aseti, is that fine? That you then proceed.
That's fine. That's fine, Mr. Kize.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We'll then proceed to the recommendation, which is for the Petroleum Pipeline Subcommittee to set a tariff of 42.04 cents per liter for Sasol oil SNI pipeline for the period 1 July 2025 to 30 June 2026, and approve the decision and reasons for decision document on SNI pipeline tariff application attached as Annexure A here too, as well as incorporate all the comments regarding the enhancement of this document, particularly the justification for the volumes, including following up monitoring this closely throughout the period. If you do support the recommendation, members may indicate by showing your hands. Thank you, Madam Aseti. Thank you, Mr. Sbanda. Thank you, Madam Pungose. Thank you, Advocate Tole. I also support the recommendation with those enhancements. This then takes us to item 10, which is a closeout report on the final findings, report on the actual tariffs charged for the period 1 July 2022 to 30 June 2023. Over to you, ma'am, and your team. You've got your 3 minutes.
Chairperson, thank you. And this also will be Mr. Mahlangu, who will then give us a brief introduction and also talk to the comments that were made by the members previously. And as guided, Mr. Mahlangu, please then address us on the submission. Thank you very much.
Thank you, EM and Chair. Good morning once again. The purpose of the submission is to request the PPS members to approve the report on the monitoring of actual tariffs charged by licenses in the period 1 July 2022 to 30 June 2023, and also approve the tariff differentiation features for VOPEC, WASA, and OTMS. This report was initially presented to PPS members at the PPS meeting of 5 February 2025. The members deliberated extensively on the report, and the decision was taken not to approve the report as well as the differentiation features proposed at the time. The technical team was directed to gather outstanding information from WASA and OTMS, as well as address key issues raised by the members. The key issues raised by members and the management's comprehensive response are provided in Table 1 on page 4 of the PPS report. Chair, I would like to make a correction to that the correct citation of the PPR delegation matrix is in terms of section 1.12, 1.12.2 of the PPR delegation matrix, rather than a combination of section 1.9 and 1.12.2. I would also like to make a correction under paragraph 4.9, last line. The correct date for the WASA response is on 18 March 2025 rather than 2023. I would like, therefore, to recommend that PPS approves the final findings report on the monitoring of actual tariff charged by licenses in the period 1 July 2022 to 30 June 2023, and approves the tariffs differentiation features for the following 3 licensees, VOPEC, WASA, and OTMS. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mahlangu. Over to you, members, if you've got any comments, questions, or guidance to provide to the team. Mr. Sibanda, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to colleagues for going back to the licenses to get further information, which I think has been useful in terms of changing the final recommendations. Chair, I just have one issue with paragraph 6.9 on page 11 of 24. Where we sort of compare the differential rates between Engen and Total. And we say that in NERSA's view, when economies of scale are considered, WASA ought to have applied a preferential rate for Engen, considering the higher throughput capacity it contracted. And then NERSA will communicate this observation to WASA when final findings are communicated. Chair, I'm not entirely clear as to what we want here, but it sounds to me that this is an overreach. I think the licensee came back to us with the justifications for the differentiation in the tariffs. But it appears we are not entirely satisfied insofar as those 2 licensees are concerned, or customers are concerned, Engen and Total. And I'm not sure we should be doing...
Sorry, Mr. Sibanda. I'm not so sure. I think the team should have... Other thing that the team should have done here is to observe confidentiality on some of the things by way of... highlighting them and striking them through, just for purposes of engagement. But you may continue, sir, in terms of your line of thought. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, apologies for that, Chair. Are the customer names confidential? Chairperson?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right, Chair. Apologies for that. But in any case, I think my issue here, Chair, is the seeming overreach from our side. Like I said, I thought that the licensee came back to us with justifications, which to me do actually make sense. But for us then to say that you should have the licensee should have offered customer A a better rate to customer B. I don't think we should be getting there, because in any case, these are all, both oil majors and who have countervailing power. And in any case, I think there has been an explanation that there were negotiations. So I'm not too sure why we want to get into that space of saying customer B should have gotten a preferential rate to customer A. Unless I'm missing something, Chair, but I thought to me that sounded a bit of an overreach. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Sibanda. In the interest of time, I think we'll just state that based on volume, the normal, tendency to look at economies of scale and then be able to say those that will have volume discounts, that there is an expectation around that. It's more of an engagement to understand the intricacies of these negotiations, because I think it is important to understand the practicalities, so that when we're coming up with those guidelines in terms of what would be acceptable to the regulator, we'll be able to be of assistance to the licensees, because this is a process that was recently started, seeing the discrepancies between what is charged vis-a-vis what is approved by the regulator in this space, and hence then the need to then look at the practicalities and engage the licensees. There is a process that the team has embarked upon to develop those guidelines and engage the licensees in this regard. But I'll leave the over to the team to respond with the specifics, if any.
Chair, I think ours is to then take guidance. I think you have clarified that we were looking at it from an economies of scale point of view, but then maybe we won't then raise that concern with the licensee to avoid any overreach of our mandate. Thanks.
Thank you. I think it would also involve some kind of, rephrasing of that sentence, where the sentence which says, in NESA's view, when economies of scale are considered, they ought to have done this, to state that one would have expected them to do this way, but this is going to be discussed with the licensee, so that one can get to understand the intricacies of this tariff setting and charging from their side now. Are we okay with that, Madam Bo? I see you've put your thumbs up. Mr. Sibanda, are you okay with the response?
I'm fine, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you very much. The recommendation has already been read out to us. Maybe let me just repeat it for record. It is recommended that the PPS approve the final findings report on the monitoring of actual tariff charged by licenses over the period 1 July 2022 to 30 June 2023, and the tariffs differential features for VOPEC, WASA terminals, RFPTY Ltd, and oil tanking MOX Saldana, RFPTY Ltd. With that, members, by show of hands, if you do support the recommendation as read out. Thank you, Madam Massetti. Thank you, Mr. Sibanda. Thank you, Advocate Tole. Thank you, Madam Pungose. I also support this. Then concludes item 8. We move into item 9, which previously was item 10, looking at the decision and reasons for decision document on the tariff application by Sasol Oil Pty Ltd and BP Southern Africa Pty Ltd for their jointly owned petroleum storage facility in R Road, Gauteng Province for the period 1 July 2025 to 30 June 2026. CFO approval. Over to you, Madam Bogo and your team.
Thanks, Chair. Ms. Sibake will take us through the intros. Thanks.
Thank you, and good morning, members, colleagues, and members of the public. The purpose of this submission is to request the Petroleum Pipelines Subcommittee to approve the tariff applied for by Sasol Oil and BP Southern Africa for their R Road Petroleum Storage Facility for the period 1 July 2025 to 30 June 2026, and also approve the decision and reasons for decision document attached here to as Annexure A. This storage facility is consisting of 4 petrol tanks and 4 diesel tanks licensed by NESA. And in this tariff application, the applicants applied for a tariff of 13.22 cents per litre, which represents a 45.24% reduction compared to the approved tariff for the 2024-25 financial year. This decrease is attributed to decrease in allowable revenue because of clawback in favor of the customers. And the detailed analysis of the allowable revenue calculation is presented on page 7 to 8. And members, I would like to sincerely apologize for the oversight regarding the financial year captured in table 2 of the submission. Therefore, I will request to make correction on the financial year. It should be 1 July to 30 June. We will ensure this is corrected. And with that clarified, it is therefore recommended that the Petroleum Pipeline Subcommittee approves the tariff of 13.22 cents per litre applied for by Sasol Oil and BP Southern Africa for their petroleum storage facility in R Road for the period 1 July 2025 to 30 June 2026, and approves the decision and reason for decision document attached here to as Annexure A. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Sibake. Just to stress that the financial year starts from the June of 1 year, and then the 1st of June, and then to 1st of July, of one financial year, and then 30 June to the financial year, the next day, calendar year. All right. With that said, members, any questions, comments, or guidance you want to provide to the team in this regard? Sasbanda?
Thanks, Chair, and to the team. Chair, my question is around our volume analysis, and I do appreciate the fact that we now use regression analysis as part of our volume analysis, which is really commendable in conjunction with other methods of trying to verify the volumes. But I just have a question, or maybe a comment that says we probably just need to be consistent in how we, especially when it comes to the comparison of the previous volumes to what's being projected, because I think in the other instances, certainly in some of the applications that we dealt with today, I think the comparison, for instance, was with respect to the immediate previous year, whereas I see here that the projections are actually being compared to the actuals of 2023-24, which I thought, and I'm looking at table 5 here on page 9, which I thought is a bit far removed from, say, the RFD volumes of 2024-25. And so I'm not too sure why we use it. We're using 2 years volumes or previous volumes. And if you compare the RFD volumes of 2024-25 and the forecast, there's actually a decrease. Yet, when you look at your GDP growth projections, you look at your fuel projections and the like, they are all positive, or there's an upward increase. Yet here there's a decrease from the RFD approved volumes to the forecast. Yes, it's an increase if you look at the volumes 2 years back from 23-24. And I wasn't too sure in terms of the 2022-23 and 23-24, those volumes appear to be the same. I'm not sure if that's correct. If you look at column 1, 2, 3, and column 4, column 3 and 4, those volumes are the same. But my issue really, Chair, was to say that I think we just need to be consistent. The second issue for me is that the fact that the projected volumes fall between the upper and the lower bounds of the regression analysis does not necessarily mean that we have to accept the volumes. And I'm just cautioning that we should not take this to be mechanistic, that every time the projected volumes fall in between the lower and the upper bounds, then it means the volumes are fine. I think we just need to be careful that we don't move in that direction, so that it just becomes a mechanistic way of analyzing volumes. But yeah, mine was to say let's just be consistent in terms of how we compare previous volumes to the forecast, and just make sure that we take the most recent figures. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sibanda. I think it's good guidance in terms of how these volumes need to be projected to the team. It's going to be very important also for us to as a team to build internal capacity even more in terms of the issue of volume projections, because it is a very integral part of the setting of tariffs, in the same vein like the determination of regulatory asset base. We should be really very top-notch when it comes to such matters. Hence, EM, I'm looking at you and the team being able to build the capacity and capability to do that with excellence. I'll give a chance to weigh in after Madam Masetti.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I would like to start off on table 2 in terms of the correct period for the financial year. And this is not the first time that I am raising this. I think I've raised it to the same team during the REC meeting. Whether the issue of this time period, the time period, is it not supposed to start on 1st July and then end on 30th June? Why are we having 1st June, then 30th June? And then it repeats itself, because this is what I raised at the REC on Monday to the same team. But the team again today in this and we even on the other submission where we dealt with Sasol Oil, we've stated in this meeting that the financial year is 1st July, ends 30th June of each year. Why are we having 1st June and then end 30 June? Honestly, Chairperson, this is now the third time, if you look at it. So, and the team seem not to be understanding this. We can't be correcting things like those. They should know and deal with those things upfront. So that is the first thing, Chairperson. If they can get the financial year end properly or the period properly, so that we don't have to ever correct it again. Because it is also wrong. It does affect even the calculations if one were to really follow what the team is doing. And they must not take it like it's something that sort of it's a minor. It is not a minor. And then the second thing that I would like to raise, Chairperson, and I've touched on it in the previous submission that we approved, is this issue of diving into the macroeconomic issues. How are we going to tie this thing and do some measurements and bring them into the space of an individual company or firm or licensee within the industry here? Because you start looking at the performance of the industry, to look at the performance of the industry insofar as the economic performance. How can we come up with this thing of, I mean, we are an economic regulator. Our starting point ever is the conduct performance of the industry. That's your basic economics when you are an economic regulator. That's where you start. It's your microeconomic aspects, not to just dive into your macroeconomic aspects. You look into the firm in that industry, the performance of the firm from an industrial economic perspective. That's what we are here for. We start there. Then you measure the performance of the industry, understanding, getting the economic data of how this industry will then affect the broader macroeconomic issues. So you start from the micro, because we're an economic regulator. Now we come here in paragraph 6. We have this tendency of just mentioning some economic issues that are macro, yet we are an economic. I'm not saying that the economic regulator is not supposed to look into macro, but why is it that you will start from macro when you have not checked the performance of the industry? That is a problem, Chairperson. It doesn't work like that. Maybe those that are economics in wherever it is the division and also the other divisions, they must assist. If they're struggling with microeconomic aspects, they must say so, because there are others that can assist. So that becomes important, because the things that we are mentioning here, for instance, Chairperson, because we have to talk about specifics and economic evidence in justifying here. 6.20, paragraph 6.20. We are talking about an independent assessment. I'm not sure whether we're talking about us, the independent assessment by us, or we're talking about some report that was done elsewhere, or whether it is NERSA's assessment of the application before us. And then we assessed the volumes, volume projections. And then when we talk about the volume projections, we're talking about the gross domestic product. I'm not sure to what extent, because even with this previous submission, we mentioned the pertinent factors affecting the volumes, Chairperson, before we could get to the GDP. We can't just talk about the GDP and not the other things that you even mentioned earlier on, the planned shutdowns, the productive ability or capacity. There were other things that we've spoken about the demand, just on the products and all of that. Those are your microeconomic aspects that you could look into. Then you can also look into the broader things then, to the extent that there is direct effect by the GDP in slowing down the demand and therefore slowing down the volumes. That's then the link and the chronology of it. But now we dive straight into this aspect without showing. And then what we do, Chairperson, we talk about the economic performance indicators. We're throwing those names, those terminologies here, Chair, without showing the direct link and economic evidence that will speak to this. And we can't start there without starting at the industry level, your microeconomic aspects. And I don't know why they are coming up with this. And then we talk about the differences in economic performance and the performance of the petroleum industry. But where is the evidence showing what is the performance of the petroleum industry? And what is the share, the influence of the applicants that we are talking about today within that petroleum industry, so that we can see how big are they in terms of influencing the performance within the industry. And therefore, that performance within the industry will have a spillover on the economic performance broadly. How do we deal with that, Chair? Those things must be dealt with properly. And then we have all of these things about the growth and whatnot. Can we just do it right next time, Chairperson? Because really this is confusing, and the regulator must get things right, because we take our decisions are evidence-based decisions, and we must put them properly here and not just throw terminologies, economic terms, without showing the economic evidence that will then give us a sense of how these economic terms were measured. How are they linked into what we are assessing here for us then to make an informed decision? So those are the things for me, Chairperson. If next time it can be done differently, understanding how we are supposed to do it, even if then we want to go over and then show that broader economic effect. Let's start here, within the firm, go to the industry performance, then go broader. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Madam Massetti. Maybe before the team responds, I think it's very important for this meeting to note that there are certain topical issues that the team has started to have internal workshops thereon, which I think is also going to be elevated later on to the Capacity Building Steering Committee to discuss certain key issues like volume projections, RAP determination, a host of other issues that an economic regulator of our nature needs to be seized with, and that this matter needs to be really deliberated upon even further, EM and the team, because I guided in terms of the GDP to say indicate how the GDP relates and relevant and useful to these volume projections. And I think that it's also important for that interrelationship to be clearly indicated in terms of how you move from the macroeconomics to the microeconomics, looking to the individual player or licensee whose application would be considering. I think also, besides all of those, technical considerations in terms of evaluating volumes, the historical aspects of the entity in terms of how its projections have compared to the actuals over the years, especially if it's not for the first time that the applicant has lodged an application for a tariff. That helps, because at the end of the day, when we have done all of that, it doesn't mean that you are also going to be 100% correct, but it helps a great deal when you look at the performance now in terms of how the projections have fared up to the point of the application. So please do indicate that clearly going forward. And with regard to the date, as you noted, that I even was from my side stammering around this, because it's a typo that is only manifesting on the tables and not on the calculations. The 1st of July of one calendar year to the 30th of June the following year, because anyway you can't have a financial year starting from the same month and finishing on the same month, because it means you only have 11 months instead of the 12 months. So take it that as a typo, Madam Massetti. The team has already profusely apologized to me also after the REC meeting, stating that these documents they actually were written almost at the same time, and there could be no way of retracting them and changing the dates after Monday. Having said that, Tim, if you may just quickly weigh in.
Thanks, Chair. I will start, and Ms. Sebake will also come in if need be. We appreciate the guidance from Mr. Sibande to be consistent in terms of the volume analysis and record of the previous years. Maybe Ms. Sebake would also talk to that table to clarify the volume, the previous volumes and how we have done the comparison there. And coming to Ms. Maseti's questions, Chair, I think we take the guidance to look at the microeconomic factors and industry-specific factors before diving into the macroeconomic factors. But then what I think is also important for us is to clarify the peculiarity of some of these facilities in that you find out that most of these facilities are used for own use. So we are not at liberty to go and consult also the customers to also talk into some of the industry specific and macroeconomic factors and look into their volume projections, because already the volumes that are projected by licensees are looking into that. Maybe we need to extensively document that the issues of the microeconomic factors that are looked at by the users of the facilities who are also owners of the facility. So we'll do that. But then what we thought was important was, having looked at those industry-specific matters or technical matters that are considered in volume projection, we also look at how that fares with the performance of the economy in terms of fuel demand projections, because we do have the data talking to fuel demand projections, and we also look at the GDP because of its correlation between the GDP as well as the performance or demand for fuels in general. So we were looking at that end, like in conducting our own independent analysis, because the part about facility specific and industry specific is already considered by the licensee, but then we are to document that properly and make sure that the flow is as guided by Member Maseti, to start with micro factors and then dive into macro factors. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much for your response, Madam Bogo. I think the key thing here is take the guidance provided. When you are writing out, even if certain things are not applicable to a particular licensee, you indicate them as such, so that you show that there is a logical flow to getting to the acceptance of the projections. That for me is very key, and that is an issue that you need to really develop the expertise as the economic regulator in this space. Members, are you covered in terms of the responses provided? I don't see any comebacks. I see a thumbs up. And please revisit the tables just to make sure that there are no typos and the numbers are in their right places. With that, members, I would like to move to the recommendation, where it is said that it is recommended that the Petroleum Pipeline Subcommittee approves the tariff of 13.22 cents per litre applied for by Sasol Oil Pty Ltd and BP Southern Africa Pty Ltd for their petroleum storage facility in R Road for the period 1 July 2025 to 30 June 2026, and approves the decision and reasons for decision document attached here to as Annexure A. Please raise your hands, members, if you are in agreement with this and supportive of this recommendation. Thank you, Madam Maseti. Thank you, Mr. Sibanda, Madam Pungose, and Advocate Sithole. This then concludes item 9, which was previous item 10. We're now moving to item 10, which is the allocation mechanism for uncommitted storage capacity for SA bulk commodity trading and storage services, P2I Ltd storage facility in Germiston, Gauteng province. CFO noting, may you please just take us through this Mapoli. If you may weigh in.
Yes, Chairperson, Mr. Mapoli will take us through this item. Please come through.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, members and colleagues. Firstly, I would like to apologize and change that this decision is to approve the allocation mechanism as directed by our legal RSU at RSU. So the purpose of the submission is to request the PPS to approve the allocation mechanism for third-party access to the SA bulk commodity trading and storage service P2I Ltd Petroleum storage facility located at Germiston, Gauteng province. SA bulk commodity trading and storage service allocation mechanism was assessed for compliance with all regulations, requirements of regulations 3.8 and meet all the requirements of regulation 3.8. SA bulk commodity trading and storage service also stated in its allocation mechanism that the facility will be allocated to customers on a first-come, first-served basis by applying the use it or lose it principle as prescribed by the regulations. It is recommended that the PPS approve the allocation mechanism for third-party access for SA bulk commodity trading and storage services P2I Ltd Petroleum storage facility located at Germiston, and also approve the publication of the allocation mechanism on NERSA website. Thank you.
Members, any questions, comments, guidance to be provided? I don't see any hands. I would request maybe further engagement with the RSU when it comes to the delegations as part of the review that is underway to look at this aspect. But having noted that, members, by show of hands, if you support the approval of the allocation mechanism for third-party access for SA bulk commodity trading and storage services P2I Ltd for their petroleum storage facility located at Germiston in Gauteng province, and also to approve the publication of the allocation mechanism on NERSA's website. By show of hands, members. I note Madam Maseti, Advocate Tole, Madam Pungose, and Mr. Sbanda. This then conclude item 9. I also support, and then we moving to the noting of approved round robins, more of just a rectification from our side. I'm gonna go to 11.1, which is a decision and reasons for decision on the multi-year tariff application by BP Southern African Sasol Oil P2I Ltd for their petroleum storage facility in Pretoria, Gauteng province. Just briefly, a minute only from your side, Ian. If you want to highlight anything.
No, Chair, there's not much to highlight except that where there were a comments, we have acknowledged that and we will consider them for enhancement. Thank you.
Okay. Members, by show of hands, if you are happy to note this round robin approval. Thank you, Madam Maseti. Thank you, Advocate Stole, Madam Pungose, and Mr. Spanda. This is then item 11.1 is noted. We then proceed to item 11.2. The same applies, which is an application by Island View Storage P2I Ltd, trading as Bidvest Tank Terminals, for the second amendment of the conditions of its combined license issued for the operation of a storage facility and loading facilities in Richards Bay, KwaZulu-Natal province, which was also tabled at the ER. By show of hands, members, if you are happy to note this. Thank you, Madam Aseti. Mrs. Banda, Madam Pungos, and Advocate Tole, I'm also happy to note. This then takes us to the end of our meeting, which is open to the public. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the members for their contribution, their guidance, and to provide insight and comment on these issues that have been tabled before the subcommittee. I would also like to thank the members of the public who are following us through the various live streaming platforms, thanking them for their interest in the business of NERSA, thereby also encouraging us to embark on a continuous improvement path. With that, I would like to say that the meeting is now drawn to the close. The meeting then stands adjourned as an open section of this meeting. We'll then like to get ICT to